Good morning and welcome to this Monday, March 2nd, 2020 edition of the etcdadm office hours. I think on the agenda, I don't think that we have anything right now. I think there was a last time or actually a couple of meetings ago, I was going to look into what is required to have a etcdadm control plane controller for cluster API, but I haven't had a chance to do that. Although I'm closer to that because I've been working on the kubeadm controller kubeadm control plane controller. And one of the things that I've noticed is that the scale up right now needs to be done serially, and I think part of the reason for that is because the etcd configuration is written once, and then it's written into the pod manifest, and then etcd tries to start over and over until it can join. So if you deploy, let's say, 3 all at once, not 3 all at once, but if you deploy 3 in sequence, but nearly concurrently, the third member that you've deployed, that you've written the configuration for, may join before the second, at which point the second, the third might not be able to join because the second is not there, and then it may give up, or actually, sorry, the way I'm thinking about this, anyway, let me come back to that. But what I was thinking was that there are some issues with the way kubeadm configures etcd that etcdadm, today could help with. So once the kubeadm controller lands, the kubeadm control plane controller lands, I'll have a much better idea of sort of where we can insert etcdadm, and I think I'll be able to prototype that. So that's where that's at. Otherwise, I was going to take a look at the open PRs. I think there's just one, and see if there are any new issues that need to be triaged. How about from your end?
I don't have a lot to report. We are doing our perf season at Google, so all work stops.
What is that?
Performance. We do like perf twice a year.
Oh, okay.
We basically take a 6-month period of introspection every 6 months.
Oh, okay.
I'm joking, of course, but it certainly stops all work. So,
like performance on performance review, or
yes.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yes, not half-assed the.
Not like profiling.
Yes,
got it.
That would be good though.
Okay. It looks like we have somebody else joining the meeting. I'm not sure if you want to introduce yourself. Feel free if you want. Also, if you don't want, that's fine too. Let me quickly pull up the there's a PR that's been open for a while. It is to add a renew certificates subcommand. Let me share my screen, if I may, just 1 second. Let's see. Okay, I guess I lost something. Hey, wow, I lost all my I don't know anymore. Here we go. All right. Lost my window manager a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to share this. This is a PR. Let me know if you can see it. Make it a little bigger. Yeah, this renew certificate subcommand. There was some back and forth about how to implement it. I think that's been settled. There is a question of what is required once the certificates are renewed, and in my experience, it requires the Kube API server to be restarted, and it looks like that's been confirmed by PyTimer as well, is the author of the PR. But I haven't had a chance to figure out why that is. It would be and potentially file a bug. I've been looking for feedback if anybody else knows. But anyway, that's this I think should in theory be mergeable even without resolving that. But it would be nice. It would be nice, if there's an issue, if this is a bug, then maybe there's a bug that needs to be filed on Kubernetes, for example. And until that time, I think the best maybe that etcdadm can do is output a warning saying, look, Kube API servers that are clients, of course you'll need to replace their you'll need to update their certificate if it's Kube API server and it's running on the same host as etcdadm, that should then the certificates will be the default certificates that it will use will be overwritten, and you'll just need to restart Kube API server. Otherwise, you'll probably need to copy over the client cert to wherever your API server runs, and then restart it. So that's sort of the best thing I know. Is that something that rings a bell for you, Justin?
No, I was just looking at it. I was just wondering, could it be a time skew issue? Does this happen on one machine, or does it only happen on multiple machines?
From what I recall, it happens on all machines, and that's a good that's an interesting idea. Yeah, but the time skew, right? So I think what you're saying is that, let's say that this new certificate is
valid
not
from right now. Yes.
Is not valid until let's say sometime in the future. So then Kube API server actually does read it, but then says, look, I can't use this yet.
Yeah, although actually I'm looking at how it works, and it looks like you inherit the not before of the CA, so that's not it.
Yeah, I think that might not be it. And it's kind of a strange error, this remote error TLS bad certificate. From what I understand on the implementation side, so etcd for a while has had support for using a new certificate as soon as it becomes available on disk. The first new session will use that certificate. So etcd should be ready to use the certificates once they're changed on disk. It continues to store the old certificates in memory, I think, for the existing session until that's closed. So that's actually something that I've thought about, but I haven't dug into. Is it possible that Kube API server is continuing to use one session to talk to etcd, and then maybe I don't know if it's reading reading a new certificate. I mean, yeah, actually, I don't understand why there would be any problem, because the CA is the same for, for both certificates. So I don't understand what this badge certificate is actually about yet. But
as long as if we bounce API server, it picks it up. I feel like that's good enough to merge in that.
Yeah. Well, etcdadm won't be bouncing it, but it will print a warning. Yeah.
I think as long as when we bounce API server, the cert does work.
Yes, it does. It does work. Yes.
Then I think that should be the requirement for us to merge it. I don't think we should then throw our hands up and say not our problem, but I feel like that's how we should be here's how you reproduce this problem and let's dig into it.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I agree with you. I think it's time to merge this. I don't think I think maybe I had some nits that I was hoping, some very minor things, but I'll revisit this today, and I don't think there's anything that should be blocking it from merging. So yeah, so that's the only outstanding PR. And as far as issues, I think they all have priorities. So, and I think this was actually just addressed, or at least partially. I need to revisit this as well. I know there was one PR that went into to fix something related to this. Yeah. So I think that's, oh, wow, I look like I'm in the witness protection program here. Okay.
Hello, there you are.
I am, yeah. Now I can't see anything. now I look like I'm being interrogated. Okay. All right.
Somewhere in between the two extremes would be good.
Somewhere between the two. Okay. Comfort zone. Okay. So yeah, I think there was a call out on the cluster lifecycle SIG for survey questions for KubeCon for projects, and I haven't updated that, but I have a to do. Is there anything that, do you remember that? Is there anything that you think we that you would like to ask in the survey, for etcdadm?
I think the only sort of open question in my mind is whether we can go straight to etcd, the one with peer, with non-voting members, whatever, which is 3, 4.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not necessarily a survey question. It's we just do it and evaluate where we are in the cycle type thing. I don't think it's I don't think that's necessarily one where people can necessarily provide great answers to us, because they don't understand the cost of not doing so, as it were, or don't intimately understand. But yeah, I don't think anything in particular.
Okay. I found the let me see if I can pull this up real quick.
You're sharing your, yeah, there we are, cool.
So yeah, there's some kubeadm, some COPS questions. Who needs to work on the COPS question?
Do we? Do you know how this survey is going to be shared?
I don't. I do not. I do not. Okay. I haven't really checked in on this, so. But we still have a little bit to go. Do you want me to share this? Do you have a link to this? Yeah, let me share this in the chat.
I can check in. I have it somewhere. Thank you.
Okay. see. Yeah, Minikube. Yeah, I like to let me put etcd in questions. I think it would be great to ask, how many users are interested in managing etcd separately, and then how many users are interested in managing etcd, as part of the control plane. Let's say, managing, let's say, through cluster API. How many? I guess maybe the question is sort of how many people think of etcd as this, separate service that they want isolated from Kubernetes. Maybe they want to, have a dedicated team providing etcd sort of endpoints for various, cluster administrators, or is it more like the stacked etcd model? I'd be interested in that.
I think that's a good question. I think that one, and then the one you hinted at, where like, do you see yourself using a management cluster type thing, right? Or are you going to run one Kubernetes cluster, or are you going to run a small handful of Kubernetes clusters, or are you going to run a larger number of Kubernetes clusters that you orchestrate from some management cluster, right? In other words, does the self-driving functionality as we build it need to be independent self-driving, or can it be like not really self-driving, but like orchestrated by another system? I mean, that might be covered by like how many clusters do you have, but and like by the cluster API type questions, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I want to say, for example, cluster API, but then you can also have a kind of a self-managing, right? You can have a cluster API can run on the cluster that it manages.
Yes, that is also true.
Although there's a limitation to what it can accomplish. I mean, for some of the, let's say, recovery or remediation.
I don't know. Is cluster API thinking about control plane management in that scenario or not? Like, I think it's very valuable to have machine deployments managed in cluster, as it were. But I know from experience that like managing the control plane in cluster is much harder.
Right.
Self-managing the control plane, right?
I think at this point, we haven't really thought about that for the first iteration. The first iteration of the control plane management is just get it working, and then
and the first iteration is using a management cluster.
I don't think there's anything there. I don't think there's anything in the controller right now that, for example, asks, is the controller running on a host that we're about to
nuke?
That we're about to nuke. Although it is designed to be re-entrant, so even if that controller is rescheduled somewhere else, it should be able to pick up where it left from. But yeah, it's not something that we've really thought about deeply.
Okay.
I'm kind of interested. Yeah, I don't know how to phrase this, but asking whether people are planning to sort of run etcd as something separate from the cluster, itself.
Yeah, would you prefer to run etcd on separate machines than Kubernetes API server, for example? I mean, I think the problem with that is it is superficially a nice idea, but it is not the way we've done it. And so it doesn't have nearly as much testing to date. So it is one of those, like, do you want a car that is cheaper and faster? Of course I want a car that's cheaper and faster, but not if it blows up and kills me, right? Like, but I don't know that it's going to blow up and kill me. I only know that, like, I want cheaper and faster.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understood. What do you mean by cheaper and faster?
In other words, so like, it is a good idea to put etcd on a different machine from the surface, right? Like, it minimizes blast radius. It means you can update, like, the state, like API server becomes stateless, all this sort of stuff, or the API server machine becomes stateless. The challenge is, so if we ask people, do you want this? They'll say yes, because of course I do. I certainly want the option. The problem is, like, it has latency costs, and we haven't really tested that scenario to date. So although it is a possibly nicer configuration, it isn't one that we in any way support, you know, it is as supported or as well verified.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I guess if people said, no, I don't care, that would be very interesting. But I'd be surprised if they said, no, I don't care.
Okay. Yeah, it would be nice to phrase it so it's easy for people to give that as well. I don't know. I guess I can think about it. But what's one way of phrasing it so that people know that you can sort of say, you know, or I guess how about multiple choice, or, you know, how about
do
that?
It like a,
where do you want to run etcd? Same machines as Kube API server. Different.
We also could be like, we could actually express it like, yes, we should continue testing, focusing our testing with etcd on the same machines as the API server, or we should refocus our testing on etcd on a different API server. I don't know whether that's, you know what I'm trying to say, like, explicitly make it we should, like, instead we should focus we should, like, make a change.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about this? Is that phrasing?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. All right, I'll think about maybe multiple choices for this first one too. And what else? It would be, you know, I think maybe it would be interesting to ask about, you know, backups, or just sort of, I'll think of some kind of etcd nightmare questions, like, you know, have you experienced complete, or have you experienced, you know, permanent quorum loss? Have you had to recover? Maybe that would be interesting.
Another one is, if you had etcd completely fail, would you want to restore, or would you want to bring up a new cluster? Because some people will have GitOps and will have, like, their clusters be effectively stateless.
Yeah.
And may just be like, well, if my cluster blew up once, it might blow up again. I'm just gonna, like, roll the dice on a new cluster rather than, like, seeing, like, repeating history.
Cover cluster, snapshot.
Yeah, that's good.
Or okay.
Or create a new cluster and reapply from GitOps, for example, from e.g. GitOps.
But what you mean, recover the etcd cluster Recover versus create a new Kubernetes cluster. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Recover the etcd cluster.
Or recover the state from an etcd backup, I guess maybe might be a way to put it.
Yeah, recover the cluster. So recover the, well, I don't know. I mean, because you have to, if the cluster fails permanently, you have to create a new etcd cluster. I don't know. Maybe that's an implementation detail. I'm just trying to think like recover. I'm thinking of it as recover the etcd cluster while keeping the, let's say the control plane or the workers versus like that. That's sort of the difference to me, right? Is that you keep your workloads in the first case, but you destroy your workloads in the second. Would that be it?
In the second case, you would reapply them from GitOps.
Yeah, right. You would reapply, but you would. So in the first case, your data plane may be your Kubernetes cluster's data plane. Will depending on your backups, how recent your backups are, the data plane will probably not be. It'll probably be a short disruption. Whereas, in the second case, you will, it seems anyway, like it might be a longer disruption. Or it'll be, I guess it'll be kind of hard to orchestrate. You won't have the control plane, so you won't be able to gracefully sort of, scale down your workloads and then bring up a new cluster. Anyway, yeah, there are lots of. I'm just trying to get at like what is the main. The main
driver in my mind would be whether you're running stateful workloads or not, right? So if you're running a stateful workload, we don't have a nice way to store to reattach a persistent volume claim to a new, or persistent volume, whichever one it is, to a new cluster.
Yeah.
So if you're running a stateful workload, you will likely choose option A, and if you are not running stateful workloads, you probably will choose option B.
Yeah. Let's see, I'll just put this. I don't know. Note that
it's also about just how you think about your cluster. Like, is it a cluster, or is it one of many clusters? Is it a pet, or is it cattle type thing?
Cover the etcd clusters while preserving the Kubernetes control plane and workers. Destroy the existing or the affected maybe cluster and create a new. Is that? What do you think? Am I sharing my screen?
You are. I'm just reading it.
Okay.
Yes, that's good.
Okay. Feel free to edit this and
All right. Thank you.
Okay. I'll think of some choices for this first one, and yeah, I don't have anything else I think off the top of my head. But if you've got some questions, that'd be great. Feel free to add them there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's all I had on my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good for me as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think unless anybody else has some questions or topics they want to discuss, I think maybe we can get back a whole 30 minutes or 28 minutes of our Monday. for
See
performance
you.
reviews and
And other things.
and other things. All right.
See you in 2 weeks.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Have a
Thanks,
good day.
bye.
Nice to see
You
you.
too.
Bye.